A good plan, violently executed now, is better than a perfect plan executed next week. George Patton. In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Have a good plan, execute it violently, and do it today. General Douglas MacArthur. And then Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right now, there are people across this country making plans for disaster. What are we going to do if this happens? Gas could be $10 a gallon. Food could be scarce and expensive if you can find it. What is our plan going to be? Well, we can learn something from each of these generals and this fighter, especially this idea of having a plan until you get punched in the mouth. See, surviving disaster is about being adaptable and not about reacting emotionally. Mike Tyson defeated a lot of his opponents before they even stepped in the ring because of how he took out other opponents. He eventually got beaten, and he had a plan too until he ran into Robin Givens. So nobody is immune from having their plan fail. One of the reasons I did videos talking about the coming mass release of prisoners is they've had a long time to sit around and wargame. Make plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. They've been planning for a very long time. You see, any day outside the walls is a good day. People living in polite society might call a situation of no fuel or shortage of food, shit, it's the fan. They're going to call it Tuesday. You see, for them, it doesn't matter how bad it is. If it's a day outside the walls, it's a good day. And that's going to be the weakness. That's going to be the Achilles of a lot of preppers. Because they're going to be seeing the world one way. And a lot of these people who are going to be released, they're going to be seeing the world a whole different way. And they'll have had a lot of time to plan and scheme and plot what they're going to do. In the series Game of Thrones, the character Cersei Lannister said, no matter who you are, no matter how strong you are, sooner or later you'll face circumstances beyond your control. That's going to be the test. What happens when the plan fails? What's your plan B? Now, I'd like to give you a really good example of why women are better at this than men. Some have said, Florida Maquis, I've noticed a lot of your recent videos have focused on this idea of relationships between men and women during stressful situations and how women may do this because men did that. Why are you focusing on that? Well, who remembers the situation with the USS Fitzgerald? This collision that took place back in 2017 that crippled a Navy destroyer. When I was first looking into this, there was a situation that I was absolutely flummoxed by. The destroyer made it all the way back to its home port under its own power, and they pulled it into dry dock. And without telling anybody, they sent down what were at the time secret underwater welding teams to put this giant patch over the hull. And I could not figure this out, and I've made reference to this before. I was former Army intelligence, so was my ex. And she looked at the picture and she's like, that's pretty easy. I'm like, oh, really? What do you take from this? She's like, it's not the hull they don't want you to see. It's what's behind it. There's something that's exposed that they don't want people taking pictures of. And through all of my research, it never dawned on me. And that's where we began the research into these high-powered laser systems that would require most of the system to be below the waterline where they could pump it full of cooling seawater. You see, that is one of the Achilles of these systems. They generate an enormous amount of heat, which is why they started testing them on board destroyers, because they could put them below the waterline and they could pump in copious amounts of cool water. That's the problem with testing them on land. And that's what, of course, led to so many other things where we reveal this. But the point being, I didn't see it. I was looking at things through one prism, and she, at a glance, because she was seeing the world a completely different way, saw the truth. And that's the reality. This is why I have a Patreon channel, Psychological Operations, teaching people how to get outside of the primary way they see the world and start to look at things from a different perspective. It's only $1 per month, not per video, not per week. It's even less if you sign up for an entire year. And within the first 90 days, it is fully refundable. Would love to have you over there. We've got a lot of folks there. We're going to be talking about different things. The 24 cognitive biases, the 24 logical fallacies. There are a couple going on right now in the mainstream media that nobody is seeing. One of the big ones, I should say, no true Scotsman fallacy. You arbitrarily and subjectively redefined a group to exclude a subset you don't like. What does that mean? Well, it's real simple. No real American would even consider looking at the Russian view of what's going on in Ukraine. No true American would ever do that. Russia is always the enemy, and if you're even considering that anything being told to you by Washington, D.C. or the mainstream media might be questionable, then you're not a real American. It's called the no true Scotsman fallacy, and that is exactly what they're pushing. Now, some have also asked, Florida Maquis, sometimes I get what you're saying, but you talk about all these science fiction series, things that aren't real. Well, that's true, because within the storylines, there is a treasure trove of psychology that can be harvested. We've talked about 3 primary ones: Colony, The Walking Dead, Black Sails, and some of the images that I've shown people have taken issue with. But there's one that I haven't yet, and I've really hesitated to, because it takes psychological operations to an entirely different level that might make people more uncomfortable than what they want to be right now. You see, Colony, the series, everybody's against the aliens. Everybody is of a like mind. You have the humans and you have the aliens. So you have 2 clear and distinct groups. The Walking Dead, the same thing. You have those that are living and you have the zombies. Black Sails, well, you have everybody who's a pirate and part of Nassau, and then you have war against the world, against the civilized world, the British, the Spanish, the French. 2 clear and distinct groups in each of these 3, Colony, The Walking Dead, and Black Sails. In Defiance, not so much. In Defiance, you have a whole bunch of different groups that are all vying for their own power struggle. They've got their own ideas of what the future should be. And while there is a large control group, a governmental type agency that is somewhat of a threat, really, the big boogeyman is everyone else. Because you never know what the calculus is. Now, in the 3 series we've talked about, Colony, of course, you have the aliens. And you have the guys that want to get out the guns and they want to shoot everything. Same thing in Black Sails. You got the British ready to come and take over everything. And you got guys, I'm going to get out my gun. I'm going to shoot everything. And then, of course, Walking Dead, same thing. Here come the zombies. We're going to get our group together and we're going to fight them head on. See, all these boogeymen over here on the right, they're an analogy. They're emblematic of the things we fear, especially in The Walking Dead. You could imprint anything. The Illuminati, the New World Order, the Bilderbergers, the, powers that be, the deep state. You could imprint anything on the zombies, the people we disagree with politically. And how are we going to face it head on? Just me and my group of guys, and we're going to face them, and we're going to, go head to head with them. It's this same idea that Julius Caesar had said about it's easier to find men who will be willing to die in combat than those who will endure pain with patience. Now, in Defiance, there is a dynamic that goes on that is quite a bit different. Most of the conflict is resolved through alternative means. I'm sure many of you recognize the actress Jamie Murray from some of my Antarctica videos. Well, in this particular series, she's one of a number of different alien races that have arrived on the planet, and they each have their own vision and view. And in this particular case, her son is being held hostage, and in order to get him released, there are things that the captors want her to do. One of them is to kill this guy that is pictured here. And when he discovers the plot, they don't get angry. They make a plan of their own. And so it's a very kind of dark vision of the future, but I think it's accurate. And this isn't even the most seedy part of Defiance. And when you look at all 4 series together, Defiance, Black Sails, Walking Dead, and Colony, you can start to see a pattern emerge. That yes, there's a way to deal with situations head on, but it can't be the only solution. There have to be alternative solutions, and people that say, okay, plan A didn't work. What about plan B? What about plan C? What about plan D? You see, there's a group of guys that are going to be released, and they're already being released right now, that have this locked up in spades. They know exactly how to do this because it's all they have had time to do. And believe me, their definition of survival and their definition of a happy life is very different than those who have never been inside a prison. So there's going to be a lot of things going on that aren't quite so cut and dried. And if you watch these series and you look deep into the psychology, you'll see that sometimes the plans that are very prolific here on YouTube are just all reiterations of the same plan A. Well, guess what? Plan A may not work. It might work for a time. But what happens when you get punched in the mouth? Then what? We'd love to have you over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, where we do deep dives into this type of psychology, where we start to think about things from a different perspective. And things that are right in front of us may be completely out of our vision. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for those of you who have joined over there. Would love to have you. There's a lot of folks, and you'll see them down in the comment section, that will attest to the fact that it's a different kind of video and it's not for everyone. But have a wonderful weekend. God bless, and we'll see you next time.